I want an equal number of gutters in every muffin. Hey, gang, what's going on? Kevin Goatee's here, which means your old pal's got some good news. It's time for a brand spanking new episode of Gutting the Sacred Cow. This week, we got our buddy JL Cauvin back. Remember him? He's the guy who made us sit through 2001: A Space Odyssey. JL decides to double down and make us watch an even longer movie, Lawrence of Arabia. Before we get to it, guttingthesacredcow.com for blog articles. And, of course, that's where you buy our hats, bags, mugs, shirts, whatever, merch. Please support us and buy one, just, as a gift for what the hell. And, of course, guttingthesacredcow at gmail.com if you want to advertise with us or just to say hi. Now let's get to it. JL Cauvin takes on the marathon known as Lawrence of Arabia. What's that sign say? No bare feet. What's that sign say? No fighting. What's it mean? No fighting. You owe me one gumball machine. Kevin Israel named that film.
Caddyshack.
Did I do that one before in this fucking podcast?
No, but I just know the gumball machine.
Damn it!
That's
I'm going to buy that
you
sign.
You know what? If you didn't say the gumball machine part, I wouldn't have gotten it. But once you said
really?
the gumball machine, I was like,
See, I cut off the last quote, and you already knew what. Forgot one important part. Now I cut off the one important another. Leave it in there. I'm damned if I do. You're on a streak, though. Let's give you credit where credit is due. Kevin Goatee, Kevin Israel. Here we go. Yet again, gutting the sacred cow. Hope you're enjoying fantastic episodes like The Dark Knight. Wow, that was ballsy. Dumb and Dumber, and I hope you appreciate the twist that happened in that review. Hoofa. And here we have another returning guest, and that is JL Cauvin, who made us sit through 2001: A Space Odyssey, Kevin Israel's favorite film, and Donald Trump made an appearance as well. JL, how's it going, pal? What's new and exciting?
It's going great. New and exciting. Just very busy on multiple fronts, both comedically and with my day job. So that's great. The robust economy is driving me to an early grave.
I can only imagine you wait on pins and needles for Trump to be possibly reelected so you can continue your foray into the impression world.
Well, it's sad because I know that if he gets reelected, like the algorithm, it's not even about what I'm putting out, because I just had like a Cuomo video do really well the other day, and I'm trying to diversify in addition to doing all the stand-up gigs that I'm now about to start doing. But it's not even me. It's like if he runs again, my videos will just automatically get viewed more, like because they'll just be shared. And I've been noticing that a little bit. I think some of the social media companies are like, I think he's going to run. So can we start to so it's not so obvious. Can we start to tinker with the algorithm? Like, you don't want it to be like the day he announces, all the content just explodes. You've got to boil it a little bit so that it doesn't seem as crazy. So I've noticed some of my videos starting to get seen by a lot of the people who were seeing them like 10 months ago that still follow me, but haven't interacted with me. So
it'll be evergreen. It's great.
Yeah.
Well, good news for you and Sarah Cooper.
My agent specifically said that wasn't going to be mentioned, that name was not going to come up.
Whoa, slow down. Someone's got an agent all of a sudden. I'll try to.
No. And that's the real joke of what I just said. I know.
I was like, oh, good for him. He got an agent. That's great. Kid's coming along.
Yeah. No, it's no, everybody but me. So,
not me, not us yet.
It's just somebody else to take money from you.
JL has chosen. I think he's trying to cement himself, kind of like Mike Price is going after historical films. JL is going down the niche avenue of making Kevin and I watch marathon epic films. And I did the math. JL has made us watch a combined 6 hours of movies. As he has chosen this week, Lawrence of Arabia, which I have never seen until 3 nights ago. And I bought it on Vudu for $5, never watched it. I go, wow, I'm just going to save it for a long plane ride. And now JL says, we're going to do Lawrence of Arabia. I go, well, here we go, Vudu, $5 buyout.
A flight to Australia. Oh, it turns out I've still got 10 minutes to go when I get to the hotel.
Can I get Wi-Fi in the airport while I wait for my bags? Lawrence of Arabia, 1962. I thought it was done a lot earlier than 1962.
Yeah, me too.
A budget of 15 million at the time, a box office haul of 70 million. Turn that into 2021 money. $137 million budget, $641.1 million haul. Of that $15 million budget, about $8.5 million went to Peter O'Toole's alcohol habit, I read. Okay.
And the rest to camels.
Yeah. IMDb, as we all know, is a 1 through 10 scale with decimal points. JL, what do you think that Lawrence of Arabia scored on the old IMDb?
9.1.
Kevin Israel.
I'm going to go 9.7.
8.3.
Wow.
Huh. I think I floored both of you on that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Rotten Tomatoes score, critics 1 through 100. Kevin Israel. Let's hear it, pal.
94.
JL Cauvin.
98.
93.
Oh, so close.
Rotten Tomatoes score for the people. JL, the floor is yours.
79.
Kevin Israel.
84.
90.
Wow.
3.
Oh, wow.
People love this.
That's crazy to me.
Maybe
it doesn't surprise me, but I was just sort of going, maybe there'll be a recency tilt about,
me
it's
too.
not that great, but I get if obviously when this movie was out, it is considered a monumental classic.
Right. I think people love it because maybe they had a teacher get mono and they made them watch this film for about 2.5 weeks straight in school. Quotes, you rotten bloody man. Here, let me take your rotten bloody picture for the rotten bloody paper. I forgot how Brits love to say rotten or bloody instead of fucking. And that's all I had. This film is viciously unquotable. Kevin Israel.
I have nothing.
That's the same. And I had to dig for that one. JL?
Yeah, I got nothing.
As far as quotes, the problem is there were moments during the movie when I said, oh, that's a pretty good line. And then 9 hours more of movie happened and they don't stay in my head.
Fair.
Oh, wait. I do have one. He's a slim customer. I don't know why that. I was just like, I guess that was something people said at some point.
This is you grasping for straws. Jesus. 5 fun facts. Want to take a guess? Huge name at the time. Huge name. Want to take a guess on who passed on the role? Big name. Big name. Saying he did not want to burn up in the desert for several months. One guess. Go for it.
Charlton Heston.
Not a bad one.
That's a great, because that's actually who I thought was in this at first when I started watching it.
Yeah.
Sean Connery.
Oh, this is long before Con. No, I guess not, because the goal Dr. No is 61. No, Marlon Brando.
Damn it. And I know it's gonna, I was going, that was my second guess.
Yeah. Omar Sharif and Peter O'Toole were so drunk at one point, well, many points, they wanted to try tying themselves to their camels, but only Sharif went through it and was dragged about for quite some time.
Oh, good times in the desert.
Yeah. Listen, grab ass only is fun for so long until, it's not.
But we learned you can poke a camel in the ass. That's something.
Oh, and speaking of asses, the first time Peter O'Toole rode a camel, he bled from his ass. But the first time he had anal sex, he bled from his ass as well. So this is a historical aspect. Omar Sharif and Peter O'Toole gambled all their earnings away twice in Beirut and Casablanca when the film went on hiatus. They're bad poker players. The crew used white plastic cups for drinking water, but the desert wind gust would pick them up and blow them to the desert. After numerous shots being ruined, director David Lean banned them and had them replaced with ceramic mugs. And those are the 5 fun.
I would say that was the least fun of the 5 fun facts.
Motherfucker, I want you to cull through these. This drudgery of an unfun set and find something that's worthwhile. Well, we're going to move right along to everyone's new favorite, Ask a Gutter. Let's scroll down. Brandon Oglesby at Newark Night. Good to see JL back, even though this was a biopic of a real person. Was this the original white savior movie, or just the one a lot of later films were based on?
My guess is that's what I kept thinking of during the movie. Is that it felt like Dances with Wolves was just like did like a cut and paste, and we're just like, just change Orange to Tatanka, and then you've got Dances with Wolves now. But I think it was honestly, in a weird way, there's a lot of dated things about the movie, but because at times it felt like a white savior movie, but at the same time, at times very aware of its white saviorness. Whereas like some movies later, like that came decades later, didn't seem to have the same awareness that this movie had of itself at times. Like, even though, yes, he's the white guy saving the day, there is this notion of him not being like one of them or what's his place in the world, versus it just being like, yeah, you're here and that's it. That's the whole movie. We're just happy to see the super blue-eyed British guy.
I believe he was Irish.
Next was he? That's embarrassing that I said that.
Katie Cohen says, ugh, Lawrence of Arabia is too long. And then Brandon types in, Jesus fucking Christ, I'm glad I never saw this or Titanic. Titanic is like a Naked Gun film, like in length compared to this.
Yeah, seriously.
Taco Shirt Krillin, I have never seen this movie, and based on the comments, I don't think I want to. All right. Anything else jumping out here?
I do think a movie like this, like I'll get into at some point, like the first time I saw this movie, but I do think there are certain movies that like maybe they don't hold up, maybe, but like this is, I think, an important movie in like movie making, you know, in like the history of movies. So it has some value there.
I will echo that sentiment because I'm a huge fan of the Spielberg doc, and the first 3 minutes is him saying, you know what got me in the movies? Seeing Lawrence of Arabia on the big screen. And then he just waxes poetic on how that just captivated him and how he was so enamored with the cinematography, which is great. There's no taking that back. Guama Harristonel at Llama Lavender. Have you seen What's New, Pussycat? I love that movie. Just wanted to shout out what's in her recent watch. Let's see here. Dial Up Movie Club. I literally have worked shifts shorter than that film. Oh, they want to know which of us, Kevin Israel, which one of us is the perfect strangers, which one's Balky and which one's Cousin Larry.
I thought the end consensus was that I was Balky and you were Larry.
I've heard both, but okay, that's cute. Anything else? Katie Cohen also says, I like Peter O'Toole best when he did a Pizza Hut commercial back in the late 90s. I bet he was drunk.
And needed a roof.
Oh, our buddy Almighty Ray, Race to Canis, wants to know, hey, outside of NASCAR legend Dick Trickle, has there been a more phallic named celebrity than Peter O'Toole?
There is a guy associated with like women's tennis whose name has come up recently because of the missing Chinese woman tennis player.
Right.
His name, Dick Pound.
My. And let's not forget, for female anatomy, Rusty Kuntz. Next picture.
I worked with a guy named Dick Hammer.
Oh.
And I was like, why wouldn't he have picked Rich? Why would he have gone with Dick? Like at any point in his like adult, he could have been like, you know what? I'm rich now. He stuck with Dick, and I always blew me away.
Blew you away. You punster, you.
Yeah.
One more. Dick Pole, ex-pitcher for the Mariners. If you much watch a Peter O'Toole movie, check out My Favorite Year, because at least Cousin Larry from Perfect Strangers did it. That's how this conversation got there. Never saw it. And at the main, Damie, this is my biggest classic film blind spot. Never attempted to watch. I'd rather do anything, just about anything, than watch Peter O'Toole dick around in the desert for 4 hours.
3 hours and 40 minutes, but okay.
I mean, we can give him the credit. All right, Kevin Israel, let's let the man go out there and comb that desert, and hopefully he finds shit, and I'm sure he will. That man is JL Cauvin. It's time to gut the sacred
Sacred
cow.
It always comes together in post in the last syllable, never the first.
It sounds perfect on my end.
Does it?
Yes.
But our guests always say, God damn it, 100+ episodes. You fucking morons can't piece this together yet.
I always wonder why the guests look at us like we're crazy, because I'm like, this sounded perfect to me.
I know. I know we're in time. JL, take it away.
Now, the first thing I have to do is, because obviously with 2001, my first legendary appearance on the show, that was a movie I had seen twice before, then watched it a third time for the show. So I had kind of verified that I hated it so much when I did the show. Lawrence of Arabia, I saw once in the theater and remember thinking very strange things about it. There was a real homoerotic vibe. It was very long, and there was a real homoerotic vibe to it that I was like, is this just the acting style or what's going on? And I remember when I discussed it with my barber, this was many years ago, but a Puerto Rican guy named Tony, I said, oh, it's funny. I went to see a movie, Lawrence of Arabia, with my brother this weekend. I said, have you ever seen it? And he replied, and I quote, but I'm not going to say the word. Yeah, the blank movie. And the blank was a 6-letter word for homophobic slur. And it's a very funny story, but I was like, well, me and my brother called it homoerotic, but I guess we're on the same page in terms of what we perceived, maybe not in the same language, but so when watching it again, I watched it this weekend.
I'm more impressed a barber, wasted 3 hours and 40 minutes.
No, but you got to understand,
doing shape ups.
This is like when I'm 25, 26, and he's like 60. So like Spielberg, this is one of these legendary classic movies, or as he called it, that F movie. But so watching it again, I watched it this weekend, and at first, for like the first 2 hours, I was like, was I wrong about this? Yes, the Shakespearean acting of Peter O'Toole and the long blue-eyed stares that just feel like make out with the desert men already was still there. But for the first 2 hours, I was like, I do see the real merit and why this is a classic. But it kind of wore me down as the movie went on. And I was like, okay, it's just this just didn't have to. It's a weird thing to be like, my biggest complaint about the movie is the length, and it's like a real detractor for it. But it's so long that is a real problem. Like, it's not just like, it's long, but other than that, it's great. It's more like, it's so long, it really starts to take from the greatness. Like, it starts to deduct points. But I feel like I'm not doing the show right, because I wanted to come back on and I can pick apart little things about it. But overall, I'm like, I don't think it should be. I understand why it's a sacred cow, but it's also a pretty impressive movie for the time, but still plenty of goofy things. So I don't know how you want me to take it. Like, I feel like I want to come here and be like, it sucks. But I don't really believe that. I just think there's plenty of things about it that are goofy, and it's way too long.
Hit it from every angle you want to. It doesn't matter. We've had guests definitely go, watch it again. Not as bad as we thought it was. So you would not be the first to do that.
Okay. So Peter O'Toole, the performance of Peter O'Toole is oddly enough the thing I feel like is other than Obi-Wan Kenobi as an Arab prince. Oddly enough, maybe Obi-Wan Kenobi actually sounds, maybe that was the inspiration. He's like, well, I've already played an Arab, so I can play a guy with an Arab sounding name now. But Peter O'Toole's performance is bizarre to me. It's of that old theater acting, but on screen. Like, I thought Marlon Brando, the thing Marlon Brando brought to movies was like, he like killed the theater acting style for movies. That's why Pacino and De Niro and everybody like of that generation worship him. This was still that like, I am looking at you. And then you stare at the guy for like 10 seconds. And Peter O'Toole's eyes are so blue. Yeah. Like, in real life, that's the coolest shit. But I've never actually seen an actor whose eyes were like could you tone down your blue eyes, please? You're not a White Walker from Game of Thrones. Like, can you lower the wattage? I know that's the coolest thing. Like, that's why women were all over you, but like, it's too much. So his,
and especially against the desert.
Yes.
His eyes against the background of the desert. It was just like, Jesus Christ.
The contrast was like a blue lightsaber in the desert from Star Wars.
Yeah,
That's how much it stood right out.
I think it's tough because there's so many things in this that were easily goofy, but I'm also like, yeah, but it was 1962. They were doing the best they could. I think this was obviously the peak of filmmaking for 62. But Peter O'Toole's performance, like it said, introducing Peter O'Toole, and I was like, whoa, what a pretty big movie to make your debut as like the star of AFI's fourth greatest film ever. But his performance was like very drama, very theater, kind of like Charlton Heston, you know what I mean? But for some reason, those Charlton Heston movies, which were only a few years earlier, like Ben-Hur, 10 Commandments, they feel of like a different time. So I'm like, it's okay that he's doing his get out of here kind of acting. Whereas this movie had some things that were really moving in a forward direction. So it made his performance to me feel all the more over the top. Whereas like Omar Sharif felt like everybody else in the movie to me felt more, every other main star felt more natural to me, but the star of the movie was this overly dramatic performance by Peter O'Toole that was, like this isn't. It felt very much like Shakespeare, like, and I'm sure he's like a Shakespearean trained actor but that's my first thing. If you guys want to jump in, but like Peter O'Toole, it's like he is the. It's like criticizing Michael Jordan while watching a Chicago Bulls game from the 90s. Like the whole thing is focused around him. So if you have problems with him, you're going to have problems with some of the movie. But then there were other things he did that I the movie was clearly trying to portray like post-traumatic stress. That felt kind of new in terms of like a movie. Like he's not just the noble warrior that's one-dimensional, but I think it was new for Peter O'Toole also based on some of his acting choices.
I don't think those are acting choices. I thought that was too many gins in the desert without enough water. He wasn't getting in the zone. He was hammered, I'm sure, or at least a heavy buzz.
I'm not someone who necessarily is going to be like, I get it, but like, yes, Alec Guinness playing an Arab prince would not fly today.
No.
Anthony Quinn, I feel like he was Greek, I believe. And I feel like back then Greek, like it would be like Sicilian. It counted as person of color. So like
he did play Sicilian in Last Action Hero, you son of a bitch. How funny is that? I love that film.
Last Action Hero is great.
I love it.
I would never bring that up on this show. But like Anthony Quinn, I thought was good. I thought what I'm concerned about also is how many animals actually died during this movie. Because this is before they were just like, we'll probably lose 50 camels and 100 horses in the process of filming this movie. So there was probably a lot of animal death, but great camel training. Camels like making noises on cue. Like I didn't know you could do that with camels. It would just be like, they'd say something and the camel would be like, brrr. And I was like, that's pretty good. Because that wasn't, it's not like now where we would just CGI something. You guys, I think you'll jog my memory, but it's hard to get past length of time and Peter O'Toole hearkening back to Shakespearean theater acting and the inability for the movie to deal with all sorts of LGBTQ adjacent issues like the homoeroticism stares and the blatant, I assume, Turkish prison rape that they dance around horribly. Like,
isn't that where the Turkish prison like trope comes from? People like get trapped in a Turkish prison.
I think it's the movie Midnight Express, but if I'm not mistaken, it might be Midnight Express. But I just think it was very that was the prison scene was so weird because it felt like they were unwilling to just say or show what was happening. So the guy, like, he has like a thin mustache, which was 60s code for deviant. And he like touches Peter O'Toole's chest. And at first I was like, is he going to go for the nipple?
Same thing. I thought it was going to. I was like, what kind of movie is this?
And then they smash cuts it to the front of his pants, and a wet spot goes to the size of like a silver dollar.
and so they like allude to the fact that he's getting abused in prison while the gay Turkish general like watches from afar. And I'm like, oh, is this like platonic prison rape? What the hell is this? So to me, I would say to the makers of, I guess this is the best you could do in a mainstream film in 1962. But I was like, when you're making a 3-hour and 43-minute film, that probably could be part of what you take out. If you're not going to go all the way, why make a bizarre non-prison rape scene if you're not going to go there anyway? Just now we have a 3-hour and 30-minute movie.
You heard it here first. JL Cauvin wants his prison rape to be prison rape.
What did you want, the sisters from Shawshank to come out and corner him in the fucking room and just rape the piss out of him?
Yeah. Well, because the way they do it is more, I was actually sitting there going, oh, okay. Wink, wink. This is where Lawrence gets.
I think it was.
They talk about it later, and they're like, "He was humbled."
Wait, hold on.
That's one way to put it.
Hold on. On Stern Show years ago, Iron Sheik used to come on. He goes, "I fuck you, and then I make you humble." I'm like, that.
Yeah. They made a song out of that.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear the song they did with Iron Sheik? And it has "I make you humble" as like the refrain.
Oh, well, there you go. See, so I'm picking up on the cultural clues.
I thought that scene was almost creepier than if they just literally showed the rape. Like just the creep, like it felt almost like the whole tone of the movie changed. And I was like, is this about to break out into a gay sex scene? Like, is this all going to be like a porn scene suddenly?
They busted like Marcellus Wallace and Paul.
Because the guy holding his arms was like smiling, had this like weird smile, like he was getting off. Sorry.
I don't think they knew what to do with that. Like, I don't think they knew how they, in one respect, I'm almost respectful that they like went there. Like that probably was new for cinema as well. But at the same time, I was like, but if you're going to go, like, you're just making it weird.
Right.
Like,
but you're right. They did dance around it, and they danced like the PTSD thing and this. They were like, let's talk about, don't go all the way in, but we can sort of acknowledge people get raped in prison and war does bad things to heads.
But if you're like an 11-year-old kid who's going to see, going to see this epic, as I'm sure it did, it was a huge success, like across the board. Fairly violent also for like a 1962 PG movie. But if you're like 11 or 10 and you're coming out of this with your parents or something, and you're going, what was that? That was weird, when he was like being weird with that man. That
like movies with gladiators, Timmy?
Yes.
Can you imagine like a dad like 5 years later, whatever, and that 11 or 12-year-old is 17, wants to go, I want to go to Vietnam, and the dad takes a long drag off a cigarette and goes, let me show you something first, and then takes him to the movie, and they do a revival, and he goes to the rape, and they walk out after that part and goes, you know what, that's all you need to see. Now you're gonna go to Canada.
What if this paved the way for Deliverance? Deliverance is 10 years later, but this is like, this is the Wright brothers of prison rape, just like flying their biplane. But then Deliverance is Neil Armstrong, walking on the moon, taking it to its highest level yet.
Where is Kitty? What city we're using for Kitty Hawk as a place where the rape started?
Right. Rakaka or whatever it was. That's called.
The writer of Deliverance watched this and was like, now is our time.
Right.
He could finally
How great was that? How great was Lawrence of Arabia? Well, there was one scene that I was particularly interested in.
Make a whole movie based around it.
Squeal like a camel. It doesn't sound good. Squeal like a pig. Now we got something cooking.
But it was, I guess, I mean, that's an individual scene, obviously. I found the lack of women in the movie to be, very poor in terms of representation.
One.
Was there one?
The nurse at the end.
Well, no. There were women in the tent with the sheikh, whatever the fuck you want to call him, the belly dancers and all that, right? The servants.
Oh yeah.
In that one. Yeah. Okay. No, I stand corrected. More than enough women in the movie.
There was plenty of dames in this film. Relax.
All right, broads. Don't go open your yappers in the middle of our scene, okay?
But it was. This is one of those movies. See, the problem is, I saw a lot of these movies when I was young, like the 10 Commandments, Ben-Hur, all these, and they always struck me as really fun and good and like exciting. And I was always impressed by like how these old movies like did a lot with I think David Lean, I think my favorite of his is probably Dr. Zhivago. I actually like that one. But with this one, and I already lost my train of thought. I would say it's the type of movie that I would say in the right hands, and those hands are not Christopher Nolan's, as much as I like him, because he would do some sort of time bend with this movie that would make it even longer and more confusing. A remake of this movie, like a real remake, like trim it by about an hour, but like give it a good cast. You'll get the guy who did Dune, honestly, to direct it, because he's an on location guy. He's Denis Villeneuve. Guy. Yeah. Dennis Vegas, as I call him when I'm in a hurry. But the problem is, like, when they did a remake of Ben-Hur, I don't think it was supposed to be any good, but nobody saw it. Nobody cared. Like,
I didn't know there was, I did not know there was a remake of Ben-Hur. I swear to God.
Old people were not interested in seeing one of their favorite movies remade. And then it wasn't interesting to like young people. This is a movie that I look at, like, if you could give me a great actor acting like in a more modern style, and you update it with, and you cast 4 or 5 Middle Eastern people in the movie this time, that you could remake this movie into something really, really great. But there's no appetite for that now, because there is a lot of great stuff in this movie, and it's a very ambitious, big movie for 1962. But too long, too much Peter O'Toole, and not enough prison rape. Those are my thoughts off the bat.
And that does it for you?
It's, what, I feel like it's almost the length of the movie works in its favor when you're trying to critique it. Because if the movie's like 100 minutes, you're like, that scene sucked, that person sucked, what were they doing there? But this is like 3 movies, and I'm trying to remember every individual detail of a very, very long movie. And at the end, you're like, I guess I don't have too many complaints, because there's like so much movie that you're like, a couple things sucked and it was too long. But I'd say that's probably
all right.
It
Sounds
as far
like
as I can think.
This is the golden corral of films for you. There's so much there to choose from, and by the end, you're just annoyingly stuffed, like Human Centipede stuffed.
Yeah.
All right. Give me a number 1. Give me a number 1 to 10.
See, I forget what I gave 2001. I hope it was like a 1, but this one, I kind of feel like I have to give it like a 6. Now it's revered as like a 10. Mm-hmm. It's held as a 10, but I'm having trouble like letting go of all the big things that it did. Like, it clearly is this landmark in movie making. So it's hard to like totally if I'm just watching, if this movie came out today and I'm watching it, I'm like 3.5. Like, if I'm just watching it, like it literally got released in theaters today, brand new. But there is dated stuff, and you have to appreciate that it's coming from a place like it's doing things that other movies hadn't done yet. Like when somebody talks about an athlete and it's like, that guy would get destroyed in today's NFL, NBA, but you're like, yeah, but he did invent the crossover dribble in 1947. And that was a really big innovation. So I can't totally say he sucks.
Right.
So I think I'd give it a 6 out of respect.
A lot of respect on that name. Kevin Israel, why don't you lead this one off?
So JL ended with my overall point for this movie, that somewhere in this 3 hour and 40-minute mammoth is a good movie. There is an interesting story to be told about Lawrence and his experience, and it gets lost in just the size and the volume of this movie. The shots are really impressive. The scene that stuck out to me was when they first get to the well in the beginning, and it's Lawrence and the guy who gets shot. Mm-hmm. And the two of them are standing on either side, and they're just looking out over the endless desert. And it almost feels like a shot that they would tell you never to do as a director, where it's two people on either side and just this void between them. And it was just amazing. And that just stuck out to me. And I was like, wow, that's fucking awesome. And that must have been like a revolutionary shot at the time this movie was made. So
he was big for like shots like that, because he did Bridge on the River Kwai and Dr. Zhivago, and in those, like, he could never work today because people are like, your budget for this movie is $440 million. No way, David Lean. But back then, like, if you were a big director, they were just like, here's a blank check, right, make your masterpiece. So like, yeah, in this movie, I mean, yeah, the set, like there are amazing shots because it's all on location, and it's this, yeah, sorry.
And it's funny because I would say my same critique about the new Dune is it's the same for this movie. Like, it's visually fantastic. Plot wise, it gets kind of lost in itself a little bit, but visually you can make it through the movie and not hate it because it's just amazing to look at. Like, and this movie was that. The trick to making this movie today and make it compelling to audiences, you have to make it clear in something that history classes across the country, and probably the world, forgot, that this guy existed and that this was based on a true story, loosely, but based on a true story and an actual person who did some of this crazy shit and pulled it off. And that's amazing. And I entered this movie having no idea that this guy was real or that there was any fact behind this. And I watched and then at the end I was like, how did they just make this up about World War I? Like, they just made this, and this is how the Arab Emirates was created, and like this all, they just fiction. And then I went and looked it up, and I was like, oh, this was actually this actually all happened. And that, if you made this more of a biopic and really told the story of this guy, and it sounds like his story is possibly more interesting than actually what they did in the movie. And it sounded like he probably was a bit of an asshole. So at the beginning of the movie, I thought Peter O'Toole was playing the guy to be kind of autistic before autistic was autistic. And he was like so brilliant, and he saw things so far ahead of people. And he was sitting there being like, when he's strategizing with the general, and general's like, how do you know that already? But he was also coming off as like a dick because he doesn't know how to socialize and doesn't know how to interact with people. I was like, oh, he's like kind of autistic before, like that's progressive for 1960, whatever. And then when he started like kind of flouncing around the desert and doing these like really stereotypical, like when he gets the thing, he gets the whole outfit, and then he starts like whipping it around him, and I was like, he looks like he's like a drag show. Like, what is this doing? He suddenly went from like
Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
Yeah, he went from autistic to Queen. How did what's going on here? And then I read again. Then again in the guy's bio, it was like, oh, everybody thought he was gay. Like, that was something that came out.
The only thing missing was
him
going, do do do.
Oh,
yeah, no, Peter O'Toole
Peter
O'Toole was playing it up because the guy was assumed to be.
Wait a second.
Historians say he was gay.
That explains, first of all, maybe his performance was. I take him from a C to a C plus because that was an intentional choice. And my barber, I think, needs to attend extra sensitivity classes because now he wasn't just saying it like, it looked like that. Now he was like, he might have been actually referring to Lawrence of Arabia.
He might have known the guy from history class. Yeah. So and so knowing that, I think there's so much interesting story there to tell about this guy.
Oh, what you just said, I think would make it like you could target that. Like this movie could be like targeted to so many different demos with different ad campaigns if you redid it.
Yeah. And the movie did have a very cool feel because you could see so many movies that came after it that drew directly. I mean, obviously the new Star Wars New Hope, so much of the, of Tatooine. Indiana Jones was, the other, obviously just the look and the feel and the behavior, like so much was drawn from it. So it was cool to see all of that. But the way and because the movie was so long, it almost felt, and I feel like that's a lot of times about older movies. Like they said, screw storytelling. We just want big performances out of you, and we'll put the story together in post. And that's how this story felt. Like the scene where he goes to the Turkish prison or to the Turkish base to spy, and then gets like that whole scene makes no sense. It makes absolutely, and it's not that it doesn't make sense because why would he do that? It makes no sense because it's not explained well. You're supposed to glean from it that he's so arrogant about his ability and he thinks that he's unstoppable and he can do anything, that he puts himself in this position because he can get out of it. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that he looks nothing like anybody within 500 square miles. He can just, he has such confidence in himself. And then he ends up getting caught and he gets whipped with a reed and probably raped. And that's supposed to bring him down a peg. And that was supposed to be kind of his realization. I had to look that up to figure that all out because you don't get that from the scene at all. No. You don't get that. It's just this weird military decision to go into this base. And it felt like he meant to get captured. Like it felt like he was doing that on purpose. And I was like, oh, he's in there with them now. He's going to do something. I was like, oh, he did something. All right. But that probably wasn't the plan.
No, I'm real fucking far from being fine. Okay.
Yeah. So there was a lot of that in the movie. And then also JL's point about PTSD, that really stuck out to me because that was such a weird moment in the movie where he was sitting and he was having this like real confession with the general and saying, look, I killed this guy and I liked it. And I don't want to go back there. I don't want to do that again. I don't want to see that piece of me again. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. And then 3 minutes later, he's like, of course I'm going back. And I was like, what the fuck was that all about? Like, you just had this whole revelation and you just shit on it. And like, At least if he went back and he felt tortured about it or something. And then they kind of forget about that entire character arc until the one battle where he goes crazy and kills everybody. And it was like, oh, so I guess that was a real thing, but we hadn't seen that. So where did that come from? And then everybody just kind of forgets about it again. Like there's no talk about him like, oh, you slaughtered all these people. And the storytelling is so clunky in this. And there is obviously a great movie in there. And people just ignore it and go, but it's a beautiful movie and Peter O'Toole and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, yeah, but what's the story they're telling? And if I didn't know that if this was fiction, I would have just said, this is a terribly written story. It's a shitty story, but they were actually taking some guy's life and trying to turn it into a story, which is always challenging because not everybody's life, no matter how interesting, could be a movie. But it almost seems like they didn't even do that really well. Like they didn't take the interesting stuff from his life and talk about it. They fictionalized a lot, which, you kind of have to do.
Especially though with 3 hours and 40 minutes, it's like, could you not tell the story in that amount of time? Like, could you not crafted a more like, but I'm guessing, my guess, because this is unlike a lot of old movies I've ever seen. I'm guessing some of the stuff they were doing was like the first time certain things were done. So like, it was clumsy, but it was so ambitious. I'm guessing it got a lot of credit for the ambition of it, like the look and the ambition and the scope, not just. So, like I said, like to me, it's like, yeah, this is, Bill Russell. Like, yes, Bill Russell would get dunked on today, but he does have his 11 rings from the 1950s and 60s, and you can't take those away.
Right. And that's why I agree with you. Like I hated having to watch this movie because it was so long and and I did not turn this into a miniseries. I did it in one sitting, and it's a lot of fucking move. My wife at the intermission, she's like, "So can we turn this off?" I was like, "I'm not done. Like, I have to watch the whole movie." And she's like, "Okay, well, I'm going to bed." I was like, "All right, well, I have to watch the next hour and 40 minutes of this fucking thing." But in the end, I regret having to watch it, but I don't regret watching it. Like, it's a weird, because it was an experience. It was an experience, and it is an important movie that led to a lot of other great movies. And I'm glad that I found out that this guy actually fucking existed. And it's amazing how much you don't learn in history classes. Like, I took history classes from, elementary school through college, and I never once heard about the Arab-Turkish conflict in World War I. Like, that was never brought up anywhere. But it was just too much. And again, to JL's point, in 1962, 63, whenever this movie came out, there weren't as many movie options, and people just wanted to go for an experience. And this movie was a fucking experience. But today we have a much shorter attention span, and we expect more out of our movies. We expect storytelling. We expect characters we can relate to and who behave in some way like real people. And we want to be able to walk out and be able to talk about what we just saw. And I feel like this accomplishes none of that, because it's hard to talk about. I'm even having trouble talking about it. And I just saw it 22 hours ago. And
today it would be called The Arab Man, directed by Martin Scorsese.
Yeah.
Even though I actually really did like The Irishman. I know it was a very I loved The Irishman.
You enjoyed watching De Niro curb stomp somebody like he was standing in quicksand with lifts on?
That was obviously terrible, but I did enjoy that movie. But anyway, yes, this back to you, Ken. Sorry.
And thank you. Speaking of quicksand, the quicksand scene.
Oh, fuck.
That was one of the scenes that my wife actually made it through. My wife looks at me and goes, "Is there actually quicksand in the desert?" I was like, I guess so. I don't never been in a desert before. And so we looked it up, and that's completely made up. The whole quicksand thing is completely made up. It doesn't exist. You couldn't drown like that in quicksand because the sand is denser than your body. So you wouldn't absorb into it like that. I don't know what that means, but that was what Wikipedia told me.
Wasn't also the case. First of all, sand can collapse and you get sucked in that way. But isn't quicksand, you need water for it to kind of suck you in, and you can't pull yourself out. Yes. That's why you only find them in rainforest or forest or jungles or something like that. If there's a hole beneath the desert that you kind of drop into, that's a possibility, like a pocket. But apparently that almost never happens. And that kind of quicksand, what you saw, wouldn't, like, it might suck you in and you might be like, "Oh, my foot, fuck," and you got to pull it out. But it's not gonna, steal Atreu's horse and drag him to the bottom of the swamp. Like, that just doesn't happen. So that that was one of those. And I think this movie might have been one of the first real quicksand scenes. And then every director in Hollywood was like, "Ooh, let's do that. Nobody look it up. Just let's do it." They did it in Lawrence of Arabia.
It had to have been weird though. Sometimes I just wish I could go back. Like, what was it like if that was like the first quicksand thing? People might have been in the theater like, "Oh my God, this is terrifying." You know what I mean? Like,
what about this? If there wasn't quicksand in this, there would never be Tremors with Kevin Bacon.
I love that movie.
It's good. It's enjoyable. The Dad from Family Ties is shooting people from the house.
Oh man, the arsenal in the basement. Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know. This is a tough movie for me because, again, I didn't hate it, and I don't hate the fact that I saw it, but it's not a movie I would ever watch again, and I'd ever rush out. And I wouldn't say I loved it, but it's an experience. It's a ride, and there are great components to it. There's great aspects to the movie that I think JL's right. If you pulled out about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, you could have put together, like the scene where the guy gets lost in the desert and they have to watch him. You have to watch him just keep walking and keep walking. And by the fourth scene of him just walk, it was like, okay, we get that he's lost in the desert, just fine. And then they show the guy looking for Peter O'Toole to come back, and he just keeps looking. And it was like, holy shit, that was 10 minutes right there. And by the way, there was a 10-minute intro of music Sorry.
It was a great time. It was the epic movies were a great time to be a composer. You really got to shine and flex. And by the way, this is a score that I actually recognize. So on top of the movie, I was like, oh, this is like one of these classic movie scores that I was like, oh, this is Lawrence of Arabia. If I hear this in a montage, it's Lawrence of Arabia. But yes, with the long shots, I was like, some of this I get is a filmmaker's choice, but at the same time, you're going, you're making a really long movie here, buddy. Like this, you could cut. And then I would think to myself when his friend who eventually dies, he gets both his assistants die during the movie. He's out in the sun the whole day, but then he like goes charging at him with his camel, and I'm like, save your energy, dude. You're in the sun's anvil, according to like legend. So why don't you just stay cool and let him come to you instead of getting your camel all worked up?
Yeah, totally. So
he shouldn't have had any ability to speak. His tongue would be completely dehydrated. Water,
But those scenes and that experience did make you, and I would imagine it's intentional. It's supposed to make you feel like you're in the desert. You felt like the long drudgery of being stuck in the desert. A lot of movies are just like, all right, we're starting we're starting a voyage 3 months later and we're here. And it's like, all right, well, that was pretty quick. Well, I have no idea what they suffered through, but it seems pretty easy. This movie did not do that. This movie made you go, oh, going through the desert's a shitty experience.
The sun had its own horror sound effect.
Yeah. And you're right. The music, you hear this soundtrack and you think desert. Like they managed with this movie to make music associated with a location, which is pretty impressive. But look, long story short,
much too late for that.
I thought,
well, why? In honor of Lawrence of Arabia, why make a long story short?
Clearly you can't talk about this
podcast long. Lawrence of Arabia.
I wanted to say that I hated it and that I regret watching it, but I don't, but I still do hate that I watched it. I don't know. But for me, the movie, I would give it a 5.5.
Oh no.
I'm very surprised to hear these high scores. These notes brought to you by guttingthesacredcow.com, where you can get yourself a kick-ass sweet t-shirt, much like this, long sleeve shirts, hoodies, hats, bags, mugs. And also every day, the blog article is our favorite. That doesn't happen, in which there's a lot of that going on in this film. And movies we've seen, movies we want to see, quotes, all that good shit, guttingthesacredcow.com. If you want to advertise with us, guttingthesacredcow@gmail.com. Notes. In case you had to take a piss or squeeze out a quick poop, there's 3 minutes of blank screen with music to start off. Then there's another 2.5 minutes of music with a guy fixing a bike. 5.5 minutes of nothing. Boy, we're in for a long one, huh? The music sounds like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, liberally borrowed from this film. Lawrence's commanding officer has an unsettling mustache. It looks like Cesar Romero trying to hide his mustache under 8 pounds of makeup for the Joker. We've said the cinematography is brilliant, and I echo that sentiment. Over under, I should have clocked this. How many minutes are we going to see of footage of camel riding? I say 45 is the number. So much desert scenery, I expected Lawrence to walk by a flattened Wile E. Coyote and a sign that said, oops. I've seen glaciers move faster than this film is. Lawrence looks like Duke from G.I. Joe. Now, if the guy in the black tunic turns out to be Zartan, this movie will get exponentially better. Speaking of other films that have borrowed from this, how about Rambo 3? Yeah, that Rambo 3, where the planes attack the nomads in the camp. Remember that scene where Rambo shooting at them with the jihad? I enjoy Rambo 3. I was waiting for Alec Guinness to say, only a master of evil, infidel, and then force choke that general in the tent. How many servants must it take to set up that leader's tent? That tent is nicer than a lot of the homes in Atlantic City are. Holy shit. That was some ornate decorations in there. Where's my writing crop to whack people on the head like that one guy did? Israel, do better in those movie quotes. Flack.
Try it.
Challenge accepted. This movie is trying to tie Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, in terms of footage of walking or riding on animals. An hour and 12 in, and I'm 1/3 finished. Christ almighty. The whole going back for the servant is a waste of time. That was a good 15, 20 minutes I didn't need. By the way, Omar Sharif looking like an Arabic Lando Calrissian. Thank you. Lawrence looks like he's been created by a plastic surgeon. He's so plastic and fake looking. It's just, he's shimmering like it's, but not like from sweat. It's like a plastic shining in the sun. The guy on the horse who fired the gun. Well, we know where Morgan Freeman's character from Robin Hood, Prince and Thieves came from. I laughed when they said 100 golden guineas. Do you find them living in their parents' basement doing Axe body spray and Jaeger bombs while flexing in the mirror? Too easy. I don't care. 1 minute, it's a dick measuring contest. The next minute, they're invited in for hospitality, and then a war breaks out. Sounds like two fraternities meeting at a bar. The smell of those men's cloaks must be worse than decomposing grass thrown into a fire with elephant shit and sour milk. So one of those servants fell into the sand pit. Could have been worse. Could have been the Sarlacc pit. In that case, I would love to throw the remaining 2 hours of this film down to that pit next to Boba Fett as he slowly digested for 85 years.
But he survived.
Apparently, that's some horse shit. I went, well, we'll get into that. Not in this episode. I have written down, I don't care more than Kurt Cobain did when writing the lyrics to Breed. I am sick and goddamn tired of lowering and raising the volume every 5 fucking minutes. When the John Paul Sousa-esque march comes on, my wife's on, she's trying to sleep. 5 minutes later, she's trying to sleep. My God, this was like watching The Many Saints of Newark. Is the audio mixer broken for that film as well? Last time I checked, someone who gets shot, like that guy who did in the train, doesn't have enough force after being shot to crash through a train window. They usually just go down like a lump of shit, is my point. Physics. One guy who looted that train takes a giant clock. Where the fuck is Flavor Flav's grandfather going to stash that clock? In a desert as a nomad. Carl Weathers and Sylvester Stallone were less homoerotic and the surf, frolicking the surf in Rocky V than this film was. This film felt like a bunch of all-star, and I'm not an NBA guy, I used to be, but maybe JL, you can help me on this one. This film felt like the dream team who lost in the first round. A bunch of stars who couldn't play together as a team. In this sense, being the stars putting together great performances, but the team aspect not having a fun nor cohesive, entertaining story. Can you imagine when they let all the horses off the train? The director had to make that comment. Hey, we got one chance to get this shot right, because once that horse gets out of the barn, I nearly just spit like a camel. Lauren said he's 27. He doesn't look a day. He doesn't look a day under 39. He looks like he takes a bus because of a DWI to coach a little league team.
I am 39.
How creepy is that guy making kissy faces to Lawrence when he's getting his ass whipped?
Oh, that's so weird.
If I was Lawrence, I would just make kissy faces at him to confuse him.
What was the direction in that scene? Like, what did he tell the guy who was holding his hands? Look excited. Not that excited. Look more excited.
I want you to pretend you're Tony Randall and you just saw I don't know, Frank Sinatra's The Shirt Off. How about that? At no point did I give a fuck about the characters, the plot, anything. I constantly pressed display to see how much time was left on this. And when I saw it, and the one that, except for the time where I saw it read 10 minutes, I felt disappointed, like a prisoner serving a 14-year sentence, leaving tally marks on the wall every 5 days. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 / I would have turned this film off after 30 minutes, which means I would have had an additional 3 hours and 10 minutes of my life back. For those critics, because regular people would not die in the hill to defend this, I think if you say you love this film so much, You should be forced to watch this once a year to make sure it stays on the mantle as a classic. In fact, if you got half of those critics drunk, half would say, I don't really like it. I just don't want to have to turn in my corduroy elbow patch and be besmirched amongst my colleagues. This film may have had cultural importance at the time. Let me back up. This film may have had cultural importance, but at a time, so were Ford Model Ts. 3.5 out of 10. Yes, wow. I get this had a big impact, but man alive, you're right. I did a little research too. I gave it actually a half point more because it was a true story. I go, oh, this is actually entertaining that this all happened. It just dragged. And you're talking to someone who doesn't mind a 3-hour film. JFK, I said it before, one of my favorite films, 3+ hours. Pulp Fiction, 240, Django, 3 hours. I don't mind it as long as it's edited and it flows and it's entertaining. This film had none of those aspects. Am I glad I watched it? Not really. Can I say check the box? Bet your ass I will. And if I ever have to delete room on my Voodoo account to make room for another film, believe me, $5 is well worth wasted for this film. As I said before, 3.5 out of 10, not impressed. I get the cultural importance, but I don't give a shit. Sorry. I truly expected you boys to be in the boat with me on this one, but instead you're a few lengths ahead.
If you had asked me before I rewatched it, I probably would have been in the no higher than a 4, because I would have said, yes, it's big, it's epic, it's visually it's inspired. I get it, but on its own merits, I just would have remembered it as this weird homoerotic, oddly acted movie with big sets. Having rewatched it, I bumped it up. I think I said to a 6 because it just, there's, the best thing I can say about it is I would like to see a remake. I would actually watch a remake if done by, a premier filmmaker with a premier cast. I'd be curious
Michael
to
Bay.
see it.
Judd Apatow. Michael Bay.
Megan Fox is Sharif Ali.
Alec Guinness is Josh Duhamel, or what his character's name is. Let's go to the real tale of the tape, and I'm dying to hear how the critic 5-star reviews are going to blow this film until its toes curl up. An undeniable technical achievement with its breathtaking scenery, epic score, and gorgeous cinematography. The story isn't its strongest suit, but it can be overlooked by its visuals.
Well, that's actually a pretty
spot on assessment.
Yeah, because that's one of those reviews where I think you also have to realize visuals count, like they still count for something, but now, we're just in this era of every year somebody's doing something new with a computer and putting it on film. But this is like how movies like a Terminator 2 got great reviews even for an action movie, because it was a cool movie with a good story, but it was like a revolution in terms of visual effects. Like, I think back in the day, this would have been a movie where one of you guys said, there weren't a lot of movies. A movie was an event, and this was definitely an event. And if it's giving you the visuals, that's like 85% of a win right there in terms of kind of old school, big theater movies.
You're wrong about Terminator 2. It's not a good story. It's a fucking great story.
Okay.
Love it. So good. Next one, from the early shots laid on the sun hot sands, there is grandeur and awe-inspiring stark splendor against which men fight and die, battle for their ambitions, and then see their dearest ideals crushed by uncaring, mercenary politicians.
Yeah, that summarized the movie.
Yes, that's not like a review. That's just
no, that's a review.
Happens.
Yeah.
Like in terms of like,
that was a book report.
Yeah, it was a book report.
The script is taut and expressive, and the musical score deftly attuned to the tale. Director David Lean has molded his massive material with skill, but I personally felt the film was too long. I'm glad you personally said that, because your opinion is coming from you. So the personally part, not really needed. Now, I wrote this guy's name because it fits with the tune that we've been discussing for the last hour or so. Dick Banks of the Charlotte Observer on April 20th, hey, that's Don Mattingly's birthday and my nephew's, writes, it's a good movie, a long movie, but not a minute too long. It's one you will enjoy thinking about afterward and perhaps plan to see again. Dick Banks is Dick wrong on this one. One of the most magnificent pictures, if not the most magnificent, and one of the most exasperating.
That's a fair.
Fair.
I feel like that's more in tune with you guys. Like, even though that's definitely not a 3.5 out of 10 review, that is kind of like this is great. This, I can tell this is great. I'm not enjoying it.
you know who love this film? Babysitters, because they charge by the hour. Like, oh, you're gonna go see Lawrence of Arabia? Sweet, that's a hell of a payday for me today. They're like, Naked Gun, hour and 25. Oh shit, well, make $8. Critics,
why am I babysitting in a time warp where these two movies are available?
Those two. Critics, 1-star reviews. Spiegel and Bolt and David Lean have run into an old problem with biographical art. They have invented too much to please biographers, and yet they have not taken the bolder liberties that make art.
All right.
Words and words.
Lots of them.
O'Toole looks a good deal like Lawrence's portraits, and he rides a camel with great authority. He actually did train to ride camels. He rode on the set the first day on a camel, got there early and practiced. But he cannot project a sense of magic, and in moments of alleged spiritual agony, he merely looks dazed. I say drunk. He says dazed.
Or hungover.
Yeah. Lawrence of Arabia is big and often beautiful, but it satisfies few of the demands of real drama. I don't know if I agree with that.
Yeah, I don't think I do.
The chief fault of this picture is that it does not come close to explaining the complex and enigmatic character that was Lawrence. Oh, were you there, asshole? Did you guys hang out at the saloon together on the Oasis? Knocking back belly dancers in the bathroom? Okay. It reduces a legendary figure to conventional movie hero size amidst magnificent and exotic scenery, but a conventional lot of action film cliches.
No, but I feel like that's a modern, like somebody modern reviewing, because you can't really be doing action movie cliches if you were the first to do, like, if you're the first movie to do something, you're creating the cliche. That's a good thing if you're the one creating it.
Oh, we've seen this quicksand nonsense before. Come on.
Oh, wait, is this the part where he pulls the grenade with his pin, with his teeth, and then blows up him like a bad guy? And now it's time for the Amazon 5-star reviews. This movie belongs in a collection of incredible classical movies. It is so well done. It has a brilliant cast of actors. David Lean directed. This movie is so well done, it doesn't need the computer graphics so common in modern movies to sell the storyline to the audience. It does it the old-fashioned way, with words, action, and music.
Of course, we didn't have computers then, so it couldn't have done the computer way.
Don't confuse these reviews with logic, JL.
At first glance, Lawrence of Arabia looks like any other movie out there. Well, it slowly becomes apparent that this is no ordinary movie. At 3 hours and 47 minutes, it's quite the marathon, but never drags. The thing that I appreciate most about this movie is its grand scale of doing things, from the huge cast and crew to the awesome scenery and sophisticated events. This movie reminds me of Ben-Hur due to its sophistication. I easily prefer this movie, however. David Lean directs what is probably the biggest directing job in movie history. The cast is stellar, and Alec Guinness does extremely well in his role, especially with his accent.
It is. I mean, it is, when you think of a movie, like there probably hasn't been much of a bigger movie production than this movie. So yeah, he gets credit for that.
When this movie came out 50 plus years ago, my parents took me to see it. My dad, always the wisecracker, commented during the intermission, which is the middle of the movie, that he was sure that all of the owners of the theaters who were showing the picture were ecstatic because they're all selling one hell of a lot of soft drinks, upside down, frowny face. If you see the picture, then you'll get the joke. Signed, the old skip skag scallywagger son who takes place in the Pun Olympics every year. Amazon 1-star reviews. Paid the $3.99, selected watch now, and nothing but sound. Screen remained blank. Called the helpline, and we did some troubleshooting, but still nothing. Amazon returned the purchase price immediately. Always great service from customer support.
Stop it.
Always great customer support. Always great customer service.
No way.
From customer support. How this is fixed soon.
Shut the fuck up.
There were a ton of those. The biggest complaint was this. You have 48 hours to watch a film on Amazon, but people go, oh, it's a 3.5 hour fucking film. I don't have time. Watch it in a few days. So people were mad they had to buy it twice. Next one. Way too slow and long. This is the type of movie I call director's ego. He doesn't care about how long we have to sit through long, boring shots, just so we can see how he sees it. Could not finish watching. Signed, Quentin Tarantino. Just another, in all caps, just another example of the brutality associated with colonial imperialism. I knew we'd find
There
one,
it
Kevin
is.
Israel.
There it is.
Peter O'Toole's personal life provides a brilliant background to his acting attempts in this bloodbath of a motion picture. Signed, Dick Cheney. Colonial imperialism. What the fuck are they talking about?
And
Next
it's
one.
it's a weird take also, because one of the things that the movie at least conveys is that like colonialism isn't a good thing and that he's trying to fight. So it's like, it doesn't even make sense to be like, it's not like they're like the British are the best and they should take over. Like that's not part of the movie. Main thing in the movie is like, no, like he's trying to help the Arab people have autonomy. If you want to make a complaint, it's like all the Arabs, they just bitch and complain about everything and never get their autonomy because they're too busy still being tribal.
Just like Rambo in Rambo Part 3 with the Mujahideen. And then it became the Taliban. Next, came with spyware and program took over my homepage. Looks like someone rented Lawrence of Analia instead.
Analia.
This one, if you thought that customer getting pissed about the money getting back was out of fucking left field, need to watch it from the start and with best friends for better discourse of its leadership roles, manuscripts, history lessons, liberal interpretation, of course, some humor as well. Hope comments can help the big money making underlying too much regulation of evidence on your own people. You have enough? Need something to help you sleep? Corpse flowers, like Algeria traffic led to trade towers. All have you billionaires got it all, while us little people stay confounded by rotten big apes of every snort level of grunt eat. Enough thoughts. May God bless all of us equally over 300 times our manifold. Then I love passionately Anderson Hayes Cooper's tight muscular rear end. It's the greatest. First headshot he gave to me 6 years ago. God bless him.
This person needs to be reported to one of the authorities.
Did he just read the like a men's room wall in the Blue Oyster? The fuck is
that
Anderson Cooper
like,
does have a nice rear end. I mean, he's right there.
Does he do squats in your gym, Kevin Israel? Do you spot him? Is that how you're
I don't like
or
to talk
are you
school.
are you a big fan of New Year's Rockin' Eve where he turns around and shows us took us? Kevin Israel, did JL Cauvin gut the sacred cow? He's already shaking his head. No.
No, I don't know that he even really tried. I mean, I'm glad we got to talk. I love JL, and I'm glad we got to have a conversation about this fucking long ass movie. But no, he didn't. I mean, he massacred 2001.
Yes.
Which I was totally on board with. But I think I agree with pretty much everything he said about this movie. It is painfully long, but there's a lot there. You just gotta kind of stick with it, and yeah, maybe we'll get a remake by, I don't know. One of the greats.
2050.
This reminds me of like an 80s film where a guy goes to a girl's house to tell her how he's in love with her. And on the journey over, he realizes he's not. And then he breaks up with her in person and then tells her, you know what? It's just not for each other. And then she ends up being the depressed one when she wasn't in love with him. But now she is because he doesn't want her. I agree. This was not a cow that was gutted. I'm sorry. It was a false flag, if I do say so myself, coming in here with that devil may care attitude, but I don't appreciate it. Just kidding.
No, I must admit, I don't know if it was COVID or maturity or something else, but man, when I was convinced, I was like, oh, this is an absolute sacred cow of film
100%
for sure.
Oh, yeah.
So as long as I just am as perplexed and annoyed as I was when I was 28, I've got a good one here. And then I kind of watched, I was like, this is almost the worst case scenario where I'm just like, there are problems with it. Like that's no good for you. Want an A+ to shock everyone or an F to have real trolling. Instead, I'm like, B-.
See, you know what's funny? The way you're talking is the exact reverse of the analogy Kev just gave. You're like the guy who's like, I'm gonna go break up with her, and drives over, and then you get there and you're like,
Yeah.
I mean, I do kind of like her, and she is, she comes over, and then you go back and your buddies are like, so did you do it? And you're like, well, and they're like, oh, come on. You said you're gonna break up with her.
Yeah, we're gonna take it slow. Lawrence Arabian and I, we're just gonna like take it slow from here and see.
He said we just have to see each other like one night a week. It's cool.
We're just gonna be friends at first, and then no sexual tension, no pressure. It's all cool.
Dale, at least you got this.
That's no. That's like, this would make my advice to any future guests would be like, lie. Don't pick a movie that you can destroy. Pick a movie that will end up being a legendary face swap. Because that is incredible.
I can't wait to see future episodes. We're actually gutting our own again this year. I'm taking on, because I can't stand The Princess Bride, and Kevin's doing 300. So I can't wait to see how I look on The Princess Bride. Kevin is 300. It's 300. That's an easy one. It's already been done.
You know what's funny? I tried doing me for 300, but because I have a beard, you don't notice.
Blends right in. Exactly.
It looks like the same guy, and I have those abs. So
yeah. Are we going back to 2002?
Yeah.
Steroided Israel was hanging around.
Wasn't that long ago? It was like 2010. I was still doing all right.
JL Cauvin, why don't you tell everybody what you're up to, where we can find you?
Yeah, thank you for having me, and this was
Welcome.
fun. I'm sorry, I do feel like I failed, but I enjoyed myself, and I guess that's really what counts.
That is.
It does.
But my website is jlcomedy.com. You can find all my social media links there as far as upcoming shows. When will this episode be going up?
A couple of weeks, maybe January at the latest, but yeah. A couple weeks.
So yeah, in January, I'll be in Harrisburg, PA, Chicago, San Jose, LA, and just outside of Salt Lake City. So
nice.
If you're in any of those places, come on down. And otherwise, just follow me on any social media platform.
Something tells me that you're making a stop and they're catch a Jazz game.
2. I literally threaded a show. It was like I don't play cards, but it was like in the movie where like only one hand can defeat this, and then you
suck out.
Straight royal fucking flush in your face. And this was like I'm going from LA to Vegas to Salt Lake, and just said I'll go to games, and if I can get a show at the club on that random Thursday that I'm there, great. Well, Wednesday home game, Thursday show, Friday home game.
Wow,
that's great.
So,
Everything's coming up. Cauvin.
9 people will show up to the show, but the real accomplishment was just threading that needle.
If all else fails, you get to go hang out under the Karl Malone, luxury suites or whatever.
Yes, and watch a big screening of John Stockton's anti-vax documentary. The first time the man has spoken out in public in 40 years was to do an anti-vax doc.
Folks, you may not remember me. I'm the guy who wore nut hugger shorts for the latter part of the 90s and into the 2000s. But here's my thoughts on vaccinations. I know he did. God. Sweet. Kevin Israel, how about yourself? What are you up to?
KevinIsrael.com. I'll have dates coming back in February after my little 2-month hiatus. And more importantly, just finished this episode.
Congrats. I think I've like given you like thumbs up on social media, but congrats.
And that's JL. That's all that matters to me. As long as I get a like.
Okay.
That I'm going to tell my child someday. I'll be like, you know, that guy on TV, JL, he gave you a thumbs up many years ago.
Long gone algorithm boost.
Long gone are the days of handwritten notes for that.
But if you just finished this episode and you loved it, and I know you did, give us a 5-star rating and a quick review on the podcast platform that you're listening to. It helps us. It helps the algorithm. It keeps us chugging along, and it makes us happy. And isn't that what this is all about? Give us a rating and a review.
KevinGoatee.com for those NFL picks. We're turning the old ship around for the better, thank God. And of course, for dates and shenanigans are afoot. Guttingthesacredcow.com every day for blog articles and the aforementioned merch shop. And again, to advertise with us or just to stop by and say, hey, guttingthesacredcow@gmail.com. We love every one of you. We love how you love to interact with us on social media. We definitely love how you come by every Monday and we do the Ask a Gutter segment. We really appreciate that. You guys really help and help mold and form our show. And that's what makes us better every week. Kevin and I love it. And we love JL Cauvin, coming back for round 2. We'll definitely have you again in the future. Maybe as President Trump again. Who knows? He shakes his head at the idea of becoming president, but he does not shake his head at the bank account growing exponentially. What a quandary. That's it for us. Gutting the Sacred Cow, everybody. Thanks again. Peace.